Hey, it's Nikki here from Happy Hormones for Life. Today on the podcast, I have got Lisa Unger. Now, Lisa is an accredited eating disorder specialist with a focus on binge eating, overeating, bulimia, and body image. She draws on her expertise in nutrition, psychology, and her own lived experience, where she helps others move beyond guilt around food, move beyond emotional eating, and body shame so that they can finally feel confident, at peace and free in their bodies. Love that, Lisa.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Now tell me, no, I want to just start off because this is such a niche area and so common and needed amongst women. So just tell us a little bit about how you got into this, because I know you've got a personal experience yourself. Just give us a flavour
Yeah.
of what brought you to this area of work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, when I was a very young kid, I was extremely skinny and I was encouraged to eat all the time. Um, but when I was 6, we had a tragedy in the family that my elder brother passed away. And you know how you take on roles within a family, and my role was to be the good girl. I didn't want to give my parents any more trouble. They'd obviously were going through enough. And in those days, grief counselors wasn't anything that, they didn't exist. And so I just kept all my emotions in, and you can't do that. And I used to then start secretly eating, which wasn't a problem until I started developing. And then I became very overweight. And I went from this very tiny child who was teased and whatever for being really skinny. And then I became this very overweight, sort of teenager, young adult who was sort of like, what is the matter with you? Why can't you stop eating? So I have a history of dieting. I've tried every diet under the sun. And it only came to my mind recently that, of course, I also had weight loss injections. And I do understand what everybody now, this, big furore over weight loss injections, because I was just so desperate. I'd have done anything to lose that weight. I didn't even ask what I was being injected with. And I had the most horrendous diet that I had to go with it. That all you could eat was protein and citrus fruit and loads of different tablets taken, whatever. And I was just so desperate. So I absolutely understand why people, are struggling now. Anyway, eventually I did lose weight. It was a good diet at the time that was actually pretty healthy eating. But then I went the other way. I became so controlling over what I ate. I was terrified of putting that weight back on because I never wanted to be as unhappy as I had been when I was bigger. And it was only actually my daughter, when she was 18 months old, that helped me see that what I was doing was, not right, because I also restricted her. She wasn't allowed anything with sugar, not even a rusk. And I took her to a play group, and she would hang on to the table until it was time for biscuits, because she was so desperate to get these biscuits. And I just thought, I can't do that to my children.
Mm.
So I had to find another way. And I did. I learned to relax around food. Um, it was hard. It was really hard unlearning everything that I'd learned already. And then, yeah, and it took me to studying nutritional therapy, and then going into studying eating disorders. And yeah, because I never want anyone to have to go through what I went through, is really where it comes down to.
And it's incredibly common, unfortunately, isn't it? Our women's relationships with food is so complicated, isn't it? There are many
Yeah,
layers, aren't there? And you have to unlearn all those layers and go back to the basics, haven't you? Before we get
absolutely.
into that, do want to talk today about weight loss jabs. You've already
Yeah,
mentioned them, and we've come together today to really look at this area in terms of what you know about your niche and your work. So
yeah.
I'd love to know from you. Yes, of course, we know that they're great for type 2 diabetes and for obesity. That's what they were designed for. But what's your experience of how they work in your clinic, where you see people typically with eating disorders and unhealthy relationships with food? Do they support those people, or do they make matters worse?
Um, well, to be honest, they do both. For some people, not necessarily the people that I see, they are a godsend, and especially around the food noise. So we've got receptors for these hormones in our brain, and because they're sort of attaching to these receptors, not hormones, but because they're attaching to these receptors, they are we're just losing this noise in our head that's driving us to think about food all the time, that's for craving food, that we're not, so we can eat a meal and not think about food until we have our next meal. And for some people, that is just wonderful. It gives them headspace. It means that they can, be more relaxed around food, and that they feel that they've got the headspace to put in these good habits that will take them forward.
Yeah.
They're not the people that I'm seeing. The people that I'm seeing, it's much more having a detrimental effect, because basically these medications are just appetite suppressants. They are stopping you being hungry.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just not eating enough food. They're very strictly counting calories to make sure that they are going to lose weight. And then they are, concentrating sometimes these calories into just one meal a day because they're not hungry. They're not even thinking about food, and they're enjoying the, I suppose, this newfound thing that actually food doesn't have to be a major part of their lives, but they're becoming malnourished. And they're not getting all the vitamins and minerals and everything that we're always telling them they need. They become very tired. They've got no energy, and they can be quite listless. And I think that the jabs are masking a lot of what is going on underneath. And as you mentioned, women, this is especially important for women, isn't it? Because actually, we're already, our hormones are already shifting, and we're going to be losing muscle mass and bone density, which is really important for us as we get older, if we're not getting the nutrients that we need.
And for someone with an eating disorder, Lisa, how does that, your appetite's taken away, so you're not eating much, but you've still got that emotional need to purge, have you, or need to, the guilt around even what you're eating, the less amount of what you're eating? How does that work in a mind that has got those issues?
Well, definitely, it doesn't take away all the reasons that we overeat in the first place. We don't overeat because we're greedy or because we've got no willpower. Overeating has become a coping strategy for us for whatever reason. And for me, my emotional eating was to help me sort of numb me, so that I wasn't grieving in the same way, or if I had an emotion that either I couldn't identify or I didn't know what to do with, it would comfort me in that moment. It wasn't anything to do with hunger.
So you could be on these jabs and still have those emotional cravings.
Yes.
And then what happens? Then they actually don't work?
For some people, they don't work at all. And actually, it causes them a lot of stress and upset. And also that you can still overeat even when you are taking the jabs. And then you won't lose the weight. And then you feel very, obviously, really upset and despondent and like nothing's ever going to work for you.
And guilty, I guess, as well. If you've got them on the NHS, for instance, or you spent money on them that you could have spent on other things, there must be some guilt around that as well.
A lot of guilt and shame. A lot of shame.
And what about when, okay, so here's a scenario: you've done well on the jabs, you maybe can't afford them anymore, or you need to come off because you've been on them enough, or you've reached your target weight. What does this sustainability look like? What happens when we stop, basically?
There is a reason that NICE guidelines now say that when you come off the jabs, that you should have, a year's support with someone like me who's going to help you with all the reasons that you were overeating in the first place. because for most people, for some people are managing, but for most people it is just not sustainable. And the people that come into my clinic, they would describe it like a feeding frenzy.
Wow.
Like, because their appetite is not being suppressed anymore. You know, the appetite center in the brain is overworking. It's making up for everything that it hasn't felt for a long time. On top of that, your brain's primary existence is to keep you safe. And so all these experiences of, let's say, I don't know, being emotionally upset and then comforting yourself with food, that's a learned response. And you've done nothing to unlearn it. So your brain is automatically going to take you down that route because it knows that in the past it kept you safe.
Mm.
So the weight can creep back on, or in some cases it's gone on so quickly. Like one of my clients, he described it as he just could not stop eating all the time. And it didn't matter what it was. It wasn't even that he went for, you know, what we would class as treat food. It just didn't matter what food, he just couldn't stop.
And that's the danger, isn't it? I think. And so quite a few doctors are now saying, well, you might need it for life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Well, they're talking about microdosing, which isn't, they're not allowed to do here yet. Well, some of the private clinics are doing it, but definitely the NHS aren't allowed to. I don't know, do you really want to be on a medication for life? And yes, they're you know, people with type 2 diabetes have been on it for a long time. But I don't know, I feel it's a real quandary that and I think it's really sad because the medications don't just affect you because you're suppressing your appetite. A lot of people aren't hungry anymore. So think about our social lives. So much of our social life is around food and enjoying food. We connect over food. And people on the medications, they don't want to do that anymore because they don't want to eat, because they have lost that hunger.
Mm.
There's also a lot of people who have not admitted, there's a lot of judgment and shame about the jabs, whether you're on them or whether you're not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who have not admitted to friends and family that they're taking them because they don't want to be judged for it. And it's really hard, especially when those people can see that they've had this rapid weight loss. And I think that can make you feel quite isolated and alone as well. And you can imagine if you're doing that for life. Well, you know, we're humans. Humans are made to connect with each other. And I think that can really affect your mental health, you know, cause you a lot of loneliness, and also the fact that you're keeping a secret from your loved ones, that kind of thing, you know, can lead to a lot of shame.
Yeah. And there are some risks as well that we need to talk about, hidden risks that often people don't realize that they're actually taking. So what do people need to consider?
I think they need to consider, obviously, all the side effects, a lot of which are talked about. But I don't think that they realize that with some of them, that they'll continue even when you're not on the medication. Things like hair loss. Hair loss is you know, because you've had this dramatic weight loss, your body, your brain is trying to keep you safe. And so it's sort of not looking after your hair follicles, and it's saying you can shed. But just because you stop the medication, it doesn't mean it's automatically going to come back again. Depression, I don't know that people are aware that depression is a side effect. And you have to be really careful when you're on that medication, especially with the other things that we've talked about. You know, the guilt, the shame, all of those will play into your mental health. And I think that, you know, that's something that you really have to be very careful of when you're on it. And of course, as I've already said, the malnutrition, that if you're not getting the vitamins and minerals you need, you know, that if you're a young person, you might be fine now, but in later years, you're going to be maybe have problems with osteoporosis, your bone health, etc., hormone health.
Yeah. Particularly, I think with Mounjaro, there's a depression and anxiety side effect on that. So I think you know, this is why it's so important to talk to your doctor, isn't it? Because I think many people are jumping on getting it privately. And if you've got a history of depression and anxiety, it can make it so much worse, can't it? So really
Absolutely.
important to talk to your GP about it if you've got any kind of history before you jump on and try and get it on the internet. And there are also some fake pens. I've seen this as well, that people are obviously desperate to get hold of this, and they're buying it off the internet, off some dodgy websites. There's a
Yeah.
big black market now, and I've seen fake pens being sold, and goodness knows what's in those. So that's a huge risk.
Absolutely. And the other thing is people are saving their doses because of these price hikes. There's so much fear around that,
Yeah.
that they're saving their doses and not giving themselves the correct amount. Please remember, this is a medication.
Yeah.
It's not something to be played around with.
You
And I do
definitely
understand their fear.
Yeah.
I do understand their fear. You know, they were promised this magic wand of weight loss.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, yeah, I've got it. I can do this for once. You know, I've tried everything else. I can do it. And now all of a sudden they're scared it's being taken away from them because it's just, you know, outpricing itself.
Yeah. Yeah. If people are on it, what can they do to support themselves to prevent things like fatigue and hair loss and side effects? There are lots of things you can do alongside this, aren't there? And it's super important, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the number one thing is making sure that you're eating enough good food. So for some of my clients who aren't hungry at all, what I've got them doing is having 6 small meals rather than 3 big ones. Just focus on eating a little bit, but do it more frequently and make sure there's variety in there. You know, that you're getting your protein, you know, all your macronutrients, especially protein, because that's going to help with the muscle loss, and fiber, etc. Drinking enough water. I know that sounds really like straightforward and everybody knows that, but you'd be surprised how many people don't drink enough water. And just remember, herbal teas count towards your water consumption. So that's a really good thing to do. Obviously movement, and they talk a lot about resistance training, but 40%, up to 40% of the weight you're losing is muscle. Absolutely, you need to do some kind of resistance training every single day. But then
some examples, Lisa, what could people do if they don't want to go to a gym?
Oh, you don't have to go to a gym at all. Use water bottles at home. Go for walks with, you know, and carry your water and keep, you know, moving your arms. And just, it's, you know, what I really encourage actually is just move more than you did today. I don't care if you dance around your kitchen. I mean, I know that's not really resistance training, and because resistance training is with weights, but just do something.
You can use your body weight, can't you? I mean, even just press ups against a wall, which is really easy to do.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, going up and down stairs, that'll exercise your quad muscles. So there are lots of basic things that we've got available here just to keep doing that every day.
Yeah, no, the gym isn't the answer for everyone, definitely.
Okay.
And then don't forget your mental health. Don't forget your mental health. If you know that emotional eating, for example, was something that you really struggled with, then find a way to sort of look at your emotions, find out what you're actually feeling and what's going to help you cope with that feeling that isn't food. And do it while you've got the support of the jab. Don't wait till afterwards and think it's going to be okay, because it probably won't.
Yeah. And obviously get help if you need it to deal with past traumas or whatever you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Those that it won't work for, or shouldn't take it, or don't want to take it, what are the alternatives? What could they do instead to lose weight? And I know this is the $64 million question, right? But in your experience, what are those basic things?
In my experience, when they're on a diet, what they're working on is the symptom. The food is the symptom. What you've got to look at is the root. What is going on underneath? And that's all the areas that you need to work on. So you need to work on, yes, you need to work on food, but not on necessarily what you're eating. You've got to look at how you eat it. So if I could just give you one example, one tip that somebody could do just now, is instead of trying to deny yourself your chocolate, give yourself permission to have it. Because when you try really hard not to eat it, like when you're on a diet, when you do start eating it, you can't stop. Give yourself permission to have that chocolate or crisp, whatever it is, every single day. But make sure you eat it like this. Don't eat it in front of the television when you're not focusing on it. Don't eat it when you're walking around the kitchen or in the car. Sit down at the table, put it on a nice plate, smell it, like really anticipate it. My mouth waters when I do this. Anticipate it, right? Nibble it, eat it really slowly, enjoy every bite. And when you get that little gremlin, which you will, on your shoulder saying, go and have some more, you say, no, I don't need to have more now because I'll have it again tomorrow. And I promise you, keep practicing. It doesn't work first time, but keep practicing it. And I promise you that what happens is that food, the chocolate, or obviously my love, stops being on that pedestal and it just starts to be food. Yeah, food I really enjoy. But I'm not eating chocolate because I'm hungry. I'm eating it because I enjoy it. And that is enough. And it really works. So give yourself permission to have it, but eat it in the right way.
And I'm guessing that gives you the power then to say yes or no to it, rather than it has you in its power. Is that
Exactly? So
right?
I had a client who, her big thing was crisps, and she used to eat a lot of the, like, she'd have the family bag of crisps and it would be gone.
We've all done that.
Right? Got to day 4 and she rang me up and she said, Lisa, I really don't like you. So I said, what have I done? She said, well, I realized I don't even like crisps. So it was all about habit. It was about it was just it was there, and it's like, you know, that mentality, well, I'm going to eat one crisp, I'll eat them all, kind of thing. And she just couldn't stop till she'd got to the bottom. She didn't even like them when she gave herself choice. So it's really about giving yourself choice.
Wow.
And stopping labeling it. You know, it's not a bad food anymore. Chocolate is just chocolate. I love it, but I don't have to eat 6. And in fact, I don't even enjoy eating more than, you know, a piece, because I was never eating it for enjoyment. I was eating it for everything else. So that's like how we eat. And we work on emotions, as I said, recognizing them, finding different coping strategy. It's looking at your habits and beliefs that you have about food. Always, you know, are they true? Is it true? Is it always true? You know, it's asking yourself questions. And the big one is actually body image, body esteem, which is very wrapped up in self-esteem. So if you think about it in the dieting world, that you go on a diet because you don't like your body, you lose weight, you feel fabulous, you put the weight back on again, you feel terrible, your self-esteem drops, and then you go on another diet. Work on the self-esteem first, and then that will help with the you know, when you are more confident in yourself, when you care more about yourself, your body doesn't matter so much because you're just you. And when your body doesn't matter, you don't need to try and shrink it, therefore you don't need to diet, therefore you don't go on the binges so much, and you end up eating less, and that's the circle. So my clients, they come to me every time to lose weight. That is their number one goal. And we do all the work on these root causes. We do nothing about restriction, and well, counting calories is banned, right? But what happens is they naturally eat less and then they lose the weight. So I had a client in the summer who went down 3 bra sizes. I had another client who stayed the same for 6-8 months and then dropped a stone, but eating what they wanted, not cutting out things, but because we worked on all the root causes of why they were overeating in the first place.
Yeah, so important. Your work is incredibly important, Lisa. Thank you so much for doing it and for being here with me. To just remind people how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So I'm on Instagram a lot. So you can follow me there. It's _ Lisa Unger, which is hunger without the H. My website, yeah, just email me, get in contact. Let's just chat. No pressure to do anything. Let's just have a chat and see how I can support you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's really
Thank
lovely
you.
to see you again. And yeah, thanks so much for these amazing insights. And I hope that's helped people on the call. So see you soon.
Thank you.